Well, let me try and answer as a historian, and I make two preliminary remarks. The first is this: what do we mean by politics? What is the domain, the field of politics in a society? It doesn't coincide with the whole of society. It's a specific area of society. Politics is the system of relations of power within a society. Politics is about power, the inequalities or equalities of power. There are many other relations within a society. For example, relations of meaning, which are to do with culture, which can overlap with politics but don't coincide with politics. So it's important to be clear, first of all, what we mean by politics. Politics is about relations of power. Second thing I answer here as a historian is that if we talk about politicization, which you're asking, how does an individual become political, have political ideas, start to act politically? That depends always much more on the specific social and historical conditions of a given time than on the individual choices or will of the individual. The individual may be important in that, but fundamentally the most important thing are the conditions of possibility of being politicized, I would say. I think one question you asked, is it normal or is it possible to start becoming political, having a political sense, already in school? I think this was one of your questions. And of course the answer is yes, historically there have been occasions in which quite young school children in high school, 13-year-olds and so on, have played an important 13, 15-year-olds, have become highly political and played a very important political role. You can think of the black civil rights movement in the American South in 1963. Children of 13 to 15 were mobilized and so on by Martin Luther King, escaping. They had to climb over walls of the convents in which the girls were kept, the nuns tried to keep them in, and they've had a very big impact and so on in the success of the movement and so on, of the boycott in Birmingham, Alabama. So that's a good example. Another example would be in 2006 in France, when high school students mobilized on a huge scale to stop the government introducing a new legislation designed to make the first jobs that any of them would get in life be very precarious, short-term contract jobs with no guarantees. And they stopped that. So those are two very good examples of how very, very young people can actually already play an important political role. They're not identical because these two examples, and that's another important difference we might talk about, which is that in the first case, the children were joining a movement that was already organized. There was already the civil rights movement and so on, which was organized by King and others, and the children could adhere to that and play a very important role in that. In the second case, there was no organized movement. It was a spontaneous explosion and so on, in terms of there wasn't really any planning, any central leadership, but as it were, a universal indignation among the high school students at what the government was planning to do. So those, I would say, would be two examples of how those who would initially be most innocent of any political ideas, very young kids and so on, actually can become politicized.